That's it. I'm turning over a new leaf. And that's my terrible introduction into creating turned objects, or something that would be produced in a lathe, using SketchUp. So, turning. That is the process of using a lathe to basically spin this between centers, and you're going to spin the wood and chip away material in order to create different shapes. Now, as you're doing this, you want to keep in mind some commonly used types of turning features. So we have a V-cut. You can see it's just like a notch, and it leaves a little crevice in the center. You have a fillet, which you may recall from other courses. It's kind of like a curve, but it's going flat. Cove is going to be kind of like an hourglass shape. Here we've got a swell. You can see it gradually gets bigger, and it swells, and then it goes back. The opposite of a swell is a hollow. You have a flat, which is just a flat portion. And then you have a bead. This is a terrible example of a bead. This is a good example of a bead. This is a good example of a bead. In fact, here, this one's got like 4 beads back to back to back. You got a flat right there. Okay. And then, let's see. Yeah, you could look up turned furniture stuff, and this is what you're going to find. You're going to find some swells, and you're going to have coves, and all different combinations in order to make something that's a little bit more interesting than a big old rectangle. So, as you are investigating SketchUp, you may be wondering, how on this beautiful blue and green marble of an earth can I make something that looks like this in SketchUp? Well, you first want to start off with some concrete dimensions. You want to know how big the stock is going to be. So for this example, I'm going to use a 20-inch long piece of 3x3 lumber. It's going to be I'm just going to draw this. So I'm going to get rid of this lady. She's very nice, but I don't really want her around. Now I'm going to get my rectangle tool. And just to visualize, I'm going to draw that 3x3. And I think I said 20 inches. Doesn't really matter. Okay, 20 inches. Now, this is all well and good. What you need to do now is decide how much of this is going to be turned. Now, if you're making a lamp, maybe the entire thing is turned. If you're just making a leg, maybe you only want a portion turned. So let's assume I'm going to be making a table leg, and I'm going to replicate this style right here. I'm going to set myself up with, I'm going to chop this into 2 different pieces. And when you go to construct it, you're not actually going to cut this piece of wood in half, but you need to use a different type of tool in order to generate that turned look. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the tape measure. I'm going to say I want the top, let's say 7 inches, to be just a solid block. I'm going to get this, and let's see. I'm going to draw it down 7 inches. Cool. And then everything beneath this point is going to be turned. So I'm actually going to get my line tool. I'm going to chop this up. I'm making sure that I'm hitting the corners and I'm following those colored axes guidelines. Beautiful. Now that's a beautiful thing. Now what I'm going to do is get rid of the bottom half. Boom. It's actually kind of serendipitous that it left this bottom portion for this, because what we're going to be doing is constructing half of it, and we're going to spin it around and fill it with material. So for this exercise, I need to be able to see what I'm trying to make. Okay. Now, I know that I have a 3-inch by 3-inch piece, so that's going to come in handy when I go to do this first part. So what I've done is create I've created a line that bisects or dissects this square. The actual method, if you're about to use a lathe, would be to cut corner to corner, and that'll give you the center. But now I'm going to follow the green axis. No, the blue axis. And draw a line that goes from the ground to the top of that table leg. Remember, we're leaving 7 inches of this free and clear. Now what I want to do is draw, let's see, I feel like the easiest way to do this would be to make a rectangle that follows this. Okay, there we go. Making a rectangle that follows this and hits center point. So I should have done it the way I intended. So I'm going to go midpoint to midpoint. Bear with me, guys. Okay. Now I'm going to draw that rectangle. And I'm going to just create a plane for me to draw on. Okay. We are well on our way. Okay. So now what we need to do is draw out our shape. I'm going to use a combination of arches, circles, and things and try to draw half of it. I'm going to do that on my own time because you should know how to use the drawing tools, and I don't want to bore you with too much. Okay, I've been working at this for a few minutes now, and it looks like I'm making my way. I didn't really do a great job distributing this, so I'm just going to extend the bottom here to make it the whole thing. This is for educational purposes. I used a combination of lines, half circle arcs. I used a full circle for this point before I realized that there was a better arc tool, the 3-point arc. The way the 3-point arc works, you select a start point, a middle point, and an end point. So that would have been a much better way of approaching what I just did. But I'm going to undo that and continue down here. Oh, I also want to point out that I put a midpoint line to represent the thinnest part of the wood, because there's always going to be wood. You don't want to do your design right to the center, otherwise there's going to be no material in the center when we turn it around. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Okay, and now I'm going to finish this up with a 3-point arc. I want it to start there. I want it to touch this point, and I want it to end, let's say, right at the bottom there, right there. That looks fine and dandy. Once again, I extended that bottom portion a lot. Now what I have to do is clean up my image. So I'm going to delete any extra lines that I don't want to spin around. So right here, get rid of that. Good. It's looking like a nice half drawn picture of the object I'm about to turn. Cool. Probably got a little thin at the bottom there. Now what I need to do is get rid of the excess. So I just want to leave my shape. Now I feel like it should be a closed object. So let's just make sure that that's closed. We can get rid of the bottom now that we have this. Huh. Still don't know why it's doing that. I wonder if it has something to do with this. Okay, let's try it again. Here, let's go to here, and then, whoa. That's not what I want. Let me just undo until I have this going. Try this again. It's trial and error. Does the entire thing rely on that piece? Really? Okay, still there. Let's see what happens. So now what we need to do is generate a circle with the same radius as our stock. And here's what we're going to do. We are going to get rid of this square, but not the rectangle. And we're also going to leave the circle. Okay. All right. Here we go. It's almost time for the big show. Provided we can select our thing. Okay, so now what you're going to need is the Follow Me tool. What this allows you to do is select a surface. Let me clean this up. All right, finally, I cleaned it up so I could get rid of this excess here. Okay, now I've got half the profile that I want to turn. I've got the circle at the bottom, and now I'm going to use the Follow Me tool. Select the profile that you would like to revolve. Now what you're going to do is follow around the bottom circle until you've made a complete turn. Once you click, it may take a minute, but it is now going to revolve the material around and generate a turned looking thing. Now, when you're doing this, you're going to need to dimension eventually. It does not make any sense for you to try and do all these measurements and things like that. However, what you could do is identify key markers. Like if I want this portion to be, I don't know, a total, I mean, if you're trying to make this, there's no way you can follow every single dimension. It's got to be a little more flexible than that. So what you can try and do to break this down is identify different heights. So I would leave a dimension of like, hey, 5 inches here, 7 inches here, 3 inches here, and then the remainder at the bottom. So when you're going to dimension, you don't have to do all this stuff. At this point, there's really one last thing to do. Once you get rid of your circle, you're now going to select both of these and generate a component. And that's with the G. And we're going to call this leg. Boom. Now whenever I want to use a leg, here we go. Boom. I can make copies and use it all over the place. That's turning in SketchUp. Enjoy.